and the issue is taking away our right to health or not, adding a lot more rights to the average citizen, and ensuring that it's not just written, but there are other clauses that makes it work. And with me in the studio to discuss that, Zan from the Catholic Secretariat. Zan, welcome.
Thank you.
And Lawrence from Amnesty International Ghana. Lawrence, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Nana.
Zan, I want to start with you, right? Now, these days, the Christians are taking their battle out of the church and into society. And I personally think it's long overdue. I think, you should have done it ages ago. Well, what's your take on that?
Of course, exactly. The church exists not just to preach, but also to provide services and to be relevant to human existence in every way. So I don't know, you referred to the church not doing this. When you talk of the church, it's not just the Catholic Church. As for the Catholic Church, we have always been at the forefront of social justice, of socio-economic development, and you can see the wide range of health interventions, education, and all the things that can promote human well-being.
No, in that size you have been, but challenging governance to make sure that there's good governance, because of the nature, because we see politics as a do or die. Normally people will just want to stay clear of it, but I think it's about time that people overlooked it and said, no, I'm just asking for good governance and it's fair.
Yeah.
So I congratulate all Christians and all churches who are championing that. Yeah. Lawrence, let me start with the Constitution. Is being amended. Life is dynamic, and it gets to a point where you need to add things to it. And I'm
exactly
sure.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly so.
And Amnesty International, I am sure you have a lot to add and take away from the Constitution. I mean, what's the one thing that you want added and you want taken out of our Constitution?
Thank you very much. As you said, yes, the society is dynamic, and as we go along, we have to be looking at the way we govern ourselves, the way we do things. One of the things that have been hanging in Ghana's constitution is the death penalty, which is a very barbaric way of taking action against somebody we think have committed an offense. In fact, the world has moved forward in looking at ways of reforming people, not only punishing people. And to kill somebody because somebody has killed somebody is just perpetuation of killing. We think that time has just come for the death penalty to go out of the Constitution. But we also think that it is very important for us to look more critically at socio-cultural and economic rights of people, who I think we have handled it in various ways. But as we are now moving forward to change to review our Constitution, it's very important that all aspects of socio-cultural, economic, cultural rights are taken good care of in our new Constitution that we have.
Let's stay with the death penalty a little bit. And Zan, I bring you in. I mean, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I mean, why? I mean, if we have clearly known that, yes, he was the guy who went out there to massacre people, why do we keep him in prison and tax me and tax you to feed him?
The problem is, as you said, if we knew exactly that he is the person who took away the life. Even in that context, if you were sure that the person was responsible for that, then you, as Lawrence said, you perpetuate crime by, doing exactly the same thing. Killing is killing, whether it is authorized killing or accidental killing, it's still killing. And when it is even deliberate, that is the problem. So if one kills intentionally, it's not the reason for the state also to kill intentionally. So life is sacred and it needs to be protected. And for us, speaking from the platform of the Catholic Church, our church abhors the death penalty. The Pope Emeritus was very clear in his exhortation to the bishops of Africa to do everything possible to ensure that the death penalty is gradually removed from the statute books of governments and nations. And we're working on that. The Bishops' Conference of Ghana took it up. And in 2012, when they met in Koforidua at the end of the meeting, and reflecting on the constitutional review process, they picked up this issue of the abolition of the death penalty as one of the critical issues of concern that we should work towards.
Lawrence, there are some people that we can do away in society. I mean, I'm not condoning that go about killing anybody you suspect that killed, but there are some persistent people, you know, who you just think, look, it's better off going back to God.
One of the reasons why we have the prison service is not to eliminate people. It is important for us to reform people rather than eliminating them, as you said. In fact, one of the major reasons why the death penalty must also go is that the judges are human beings, and they are also fallible. They can always make mistakes, and there have been a lot of examples where people who are even on remand now are there very innocent of what they do. And death speaks finally. It speaks with finality. And when you eliminate somebody and then later on you come to realize that you've made a mistake, how do you bring back this person? These are some of the things that we have to be looking at. But there is no human being who cannot be reformed. We believe that if we take conscious efforts to reform people, it will be better than eliminating people.
But Nana was actually saying that some people do not deserve to live. It's not for you and I to decide, and we did not make human beings. I think it's for God to decide.
My first reaction normally in certain cases is that, no, the guy has a mental problem. So if they check and he hasn't got a mental problem, I'll give you a scenario where this guy goes to his wife for sex. The wife says, no, we have too many kids. They say, well, in that case, I'm going to kill one of the kids. Then we don't have too many kids, so you can give me sex. Takes the child, takes him home, slash the little boy's throat. It was in the papers. Now, if they take this man through a psychiatrist, and indeed he's not mad or wasn't under the influence, what do we need to feed him in prison for?
I'm sure if we go to the psychiatric hospital and speak with the doctor, he will tell you that, well, that man was going through some psychological
That I raised my hand, but I'm saying if the report comes and he's just a wicked person.
No, I mean, there's nobody that we can say he's just a wicked person. Yeah. So
are we assuming that anybody who kills was going,
No, but the problem is if we start picking up extreme cases and use those extreme cases to legislate, then I think seriously we are putting the problem in our hands. And then we will start to expand that to say, oh, this person does not deserve to live. And then later on you will see that all the people who are suffering, the poor on the streets, and we have seen in other parts of this country where they have used policies like delousing, the people that are sleeping under overhead bridges, they don't deserve to be there, flush them out, kill them. So it's not like that. Every life, in whatever form, deserves that life to remain as God has designed it. But that's a very specific, extreme issue that we are looking at. And I think we need to look at this issue more broadly.
Who does not respect the same rights that you are extending to him. He doesn't think that somebody should live.
Yeah, but that does not mean you should not respect it, even if in our traditions there are proverbs which say that even if somebody has done something bad, it doesn't mean you should toe that line and do the same thing. And then we hear two wrongs will not make a right.
No.
Two wrongs will not make a right. So I would not use these extreme cases as a measure to say, therefore, you should have a legislation that allows for this. Besides, there's a lot of research information that has shown, and I hope from here then we can shift to the other issues that you wanted to talk about. But there is clearly research information that has shown that countries where the death penalty has been practiced, and in fact, escalated, it has resulted to increases in murder cases. Because children are watching this, it becomes a daily affair, and there is that evidence, body of evidence. So it's not the way to go if we want to sanitize our society, if we want to make it more human. We need to be responding even to the direst and extremist situations with love and kindness, with respect for human life.
The important thing is we have to say that life is the fundamental human rights, which we all accept. That's where we should begin from. And to say that once life is fundamental human right, then we should not be taking life under any circumstances. I think that's where we should be looking at it.
Well, is that not free for all, knowing that, well, they're never going to kill me anyway? I mean, at the worst, I get a life jail sentence.
You know, Zan has just said that there has been research which says that even in countries where the death penalty has been used, there is continuous
crime has increased.
But in Canada, for example, that have abolished death penalty compared to US. Crime has rather gone down.
The right to health.
Yes.
The right to health. One would say, I mean, what is the right to health? Because, I mean, there is fairly health care system in Ghana, and especially you, the Catholics, you know, are in the heart of it. So when the Catholics, you know, because one of the things that you are championing is the right to health. What exactly does it mean?
Basically, understand that in the context of, you know, fundamental human rights that every human being is enjoined to enjoy. And having said that, let me say here, we're not talking about provision of health as a service. That's there. You can provide all kinds of health services, and the church has been proactive in doing that. But we think that health as a right to be delivered to citizens is a responsibility of the state. And that's why our bishops in their wisdom saw the National Constitution Review process as an opportunity to begin to articulate this issue of the right to health. And they are doing this in the broad context of making sure that the amended constitution that will emerge from this process will guarantee a broader economic, social, and cultural rights. And in this broad context of rights, we will see the right to health, right to education, right to housing, right to food, and also religious freedoms guaranteed. So it's by right as guaranteed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and that means that health as a right means that the citizen can make a demand for it, but the state can also promote that right and can protect that right and would work towards fulfilling it. It's the fulfillment of that right that then means practical programs like health services delivery. But the protection bit will also make sure that no human being, no citizen is denied the right to health by any third party. And that's just how important it is. And it's a right of survival, I must say.
So I have a headache and I turn up at the hospital and, well, maybe it's in the northern region where you have a ratio of like 90,000 to a doctor. And therefore, with all the doctor's good intention, he can see you in 3 months. Would they be denying my right then, or is it up to the state's duty to make sure that there's enough doctors to reduce the ratio? How does this factor in?
Not exactly. The right to health, again, has to be progressively worked towards. And it requires a whole range of interventions. So the provision of medical doctors is just one aspect. For the state to make sure that the necessary budgetary allocation is given to the institutions that are responsible for health, you know, is part of the health issue. To make sure that, as I said, nobody does anything that will infringe upon the right of a citizen, the right of a citizen to health. is also guaranteed. That's another important thing. For example, if somebody were to to go to hospital and they looked at the person and said, look, because you cannot pay, you will not see a doctor. Then, if this right is guaranteed, then he or she will have an issue to raise. But without that right guaranteed, then you can have issues like this happening and make a whole range of other things that can happen that will deny the person the right to health just because maybe the person is poor or maybe the person lives in a certain region of this country, you know, and many other reasons.
Okay, yeah, you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, I think health is one important component of what we call economic, social, and cultural rights. And for me, I just want to congratulate the Catholic Church for taking this issue up at this time. As Zan had said, it is not expected that the government will solve all the problems immediately. Everything should be done now, but it has to be progressive. Once the government and the people of Ghana are working towards improving the health situation, I think UN Declaration on Human Rights will say, yes, Ghana is doing well. But if we are not taking action, any action, we are not doing anything to ensure that the health situation of Ghanaians have improved, then that's where we have problems. For example, take sanitation in Accra now. There has been a lot of garbage around us, and we do not take action quickly. We wait until we are getting close to catastrophe before we take action. This is not, we do not have to be waiting. We need to start taking action gradually towards solving problems.
I get you, but let me go back to the the right to health. You see, at the moment, enshrined in our constitution as the right to education, that it is literally compulsory that every child should be in school, by force, as they will say. But they're always standing around traffic lights. Indeed, only 57% of the population manage to see themselves through school. So there's a huge, percentage out there that don't make it. And this is compulsory. Yes. So I'm wondering, and even those in school now, you hear the problems, I can't pay lights, they were sacked from school and everything. I'm wondering how we can add the right to health to an already, enshrined constitution that we cannot take care of.
Let me just go back a little and say that, and give you some statistics. Amnesty International has just come out with a primer on economic and social cultural rights. And as found in that primer, you find out that about 842 million are malnourished, and about 6.6 million children die.
Is it worldwide or
worldwide? And about 61 million have no access to education. It tells you that we are failing in our duties. Government are failing in their duties. The fact that government is not able to attend to its responsibilities as far as health is concerned does not mean that we should just leave it. We should not put it in the Constitution. We should put it in the Constitution and then ensure that the structures are reinforced to help to promote health. If we put it in the Constitution and we do not do anything, then definitely it will be idle. But it is also important for us to strengthen the structures that will promote the
I'll take a break here, and then when we come back, we'll discuss further. I just want to find out, because at the moment there's so much in our Constitution, all the good intentions, and we don't pay attention to. Example, sanitation. I mean, there's all the bylaws to make sure that we keep our surroundings clean, and if you don't, there are sanctions. Nobody's being sanctioned, therefore nobody's cleaning up, and we are engulfed with corolla. How then do we add more, and how do we make sure it works? Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. I'm talking to Samuel Zan Aklogo, Executive Secretary, Department of Human Development at the National Catholic Secretariat. And also I'm talking to Lawrence, my immediate left, Lawrence Amasu, who is the Director of Amnesty International Ghana. And we are looking at what else do we add to the Constitution and what do we take out to make it relevant for our time. Just before the break, I was going to put this question to Zan, that Zan, while we are going to add the right to health, which sounds very good, that if I was sick, I knew that I could demand health, because everything's about life and quality of it. Yet, I was explaining that, you know, the right to free schooling is also enshrined in the Constitution. And we can barely send half the population to school, and even that half come out, you know, still functional illiterates. If we, I mean, are we just going to add this just to make the books look good for when we go to international treaties, or is this, is it workable?
Thank you, Nana. I think that by adding this to our Constitution, first of all, I think it's respectful. This is, it's in the nature of all humans to enjoy decent life, and economic, social, and cultural life is about the well-being of people. But also, secondly, it is a political commitment for us to address the problems that we are faced with in this country. And you just started to recount some of them before we went off air. You were talking about the number of children not in school. I could add on to the number of homeless people in this country, you know, then the number of hungry people in this country. But that's not a reason. I appreciate the enormity of these difficulties and challenges, but that is not a reason for us to do nothing, just to chicken away because of the enormity of the challenges that face us. Indeed, for me and for the church, it is even the reason, the more reason why we should act very proactively. And it was very clear that when our bishops' conference raised these issues, they were very mindful about what can improve the quality of life of Ghanaian people, of citizens. But we are not being naive to thinking that when you guarantee the right to health, the right to education, the right to housing, the right to food in the Constitution, then automatically it is taken. No. It needs a lot more effort in terms of, as I said a while ago, concrete programming that will address those issues. But it also has to do with where you put your money.
Zan, instead of adding the right to health, if we enforced the right for every child to be in school, particularly girls, won't it automatically solve that?
Well, you're talking about education, but first of all, if you don't have the right to education, then why do you think that the government will do it? And by the way, let's not also be naive to think that government will always do the good that we expect, even though the essence of governance is to work for the promotion of the well-being of citizens. That is taken for granted. But look at what we have. Governments do not do it. So the point I'm making is that at least if it is guaranteed by right, then citizens can be emboldened to make a demand for that. And you can hold the governments accountable to delivering that. And so it's both ways.
So let me stay with that. You see, homelessness, hunger, you know, ill health is all tied to illiteracy. Majority is tied to illiteracy. You know, people who are sleeping outside are not doctors and dentists. You know, those who go hungry are not nurses and teachers, and those who are homeless are not, you know, bank managers and secretaries. So if we are able to enforce the free schooling, compulsory schooling, and add quality to it, which is already in there, it will automatically, you know, everything will fall into place where, you know, the average mother knows that, let me even boil this water before I give it to the child. At the moment, we have, you know, people who are so illiterate are not aware that, let me even boil the water before I give it to my child. And children are dying. I mean, 25% of children will die before the age of 5 just because of this basic information. So shouldn't we push that instead, rather than adding more? As you know, our governments are struggling with what we have on the table.
I agree with you when you say that education is key to human development. There's no doubt about that. But that's not to say that when you focus on education, you should ignore the other issues. There would still be a segment of the population of this country who would have been out of school-going age. But that is not to say they should be missed out in the national effort to promote their well-being. So the right to health is still relevant, even when the right to education is guaranteed in the Constitution. So I don't think we should give a reason that, oh, because education is an important issue for human development and that is guaranteed, other aspects of human well-being, human development, you know, need not be emphasized because education will have a multiplier effect. Yes, I agree. That will be a long term. But I'm saying to you, there is already a segment of the population who would no longer go through the educational system, but yet retain the right to health, the right to good housing. And we must emphasize this, and our governments will pay attention in terms of political commitment and allocation of our national resources.
I just want to add to what Zana said, is that human rights are intertwined. They are interlocked so much that you cannot say you develop this and then you neglect this one. Health, education, housing rights, all these are part of improving life. So once you focusing on only one, it means that you are neglecting the other one. What we are saying is here is that we have to improve all of them because they work together. That's the issue here.
And as Nana was saying, some are necessarily enabler rights, and we should say that. Because truth is, even the education you're talking about, if children are not healthy, parents are not healthy, then how do you expect that they can provide for the educational needs of their children?
That's right.
So the right to health is still quite critical as an enabler right to overall human development, and also as a precondition or a prerequisite for the enjoyment of other rights. And that's just how important that is.
I mean, since the Catholic Secretariat is championing this, so what have you done in terms of adding it to the Constitution? How far have you pushed it?
Oh, thank you very much for that opportunity. As I was saying, you know, I kept referring to the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference. First of all, as soon as the Constitution review process started, I don't want to recount the process, but you recall that there was a commission set up. And following from that, our bishops' meeting already in 2012, I think it was November, they issued a clear statement in which they articulated their expectation of the Constitution review process, you know, in which they talked about making the process inclusive, open and transparent, working towards the inclusion of economic, social and cultural rights, abolition of the death penalty, the entrenchment of the long-term national development plan. So yes, that is what the church did. The leadership spoke. And once the leadership raised the issues, that has become an agenda for those of us who are employed by them to work. And so consistently, they themselves have done bits by themselves. For example, they have engaged with the Constitution Review Implementation Committee a number of times, you know, basically to understand the process and to see where they can come in. They have been talking with Parliament in anticipation of the issues that might come before them. Beyond that, we have also worked to prepare a campaign paper which becomes an issue for public education, to including what we're doing now, So, you know, systematically we have been engaging in this process and making sure that we are putting the issues in the public domain, because ultimately the bishops are not asking for this for themselves per se, but they are asking for it because they think first and foremost it is very necessary for the well-being of Ghanaians, for every single citizen in this country. So that's what we have been doing systematically. Beyond just the constitution review process, you see, again, let me say this quickly. Perhaps many people do not know that already in 2012, Parliament passed the Public Health Act, Act 851, which sets out a framework and a system that will deal with preventative health. But the document is not in the public domain. The Bishops' Conference have worked to ensure that as soon as that law was passed, that act was passed, it received presidential assent.
851, yeah?
851, the Public Health Act.
Yeah.
And in some parts of this country, in the diocese, we are promoting this health. So you see, we're working comprehensively. And I don't want to go back to the point about the church owning a lot of health facilities, clinics and hospitals. So it's not just talking to address the issue as a policy issue, but we are also hands-on, very proactive in addressing the practical issues, the programming issues that will promote the right to health. So we have been quite hands-on as a church.
Let's hope that it sees the day of light and they don't shelve it like all other ones. Because
we really look forward to it.
Look
For now,
forward
what is holding us is I know that the Constitution Review Implementation Committee, the CRIC, is working on the proposals. We have heard here and there that the proposals have been passed on to whatever body, but let me use this opportunity to say maybe we need to know what the proposals are and let it be put in the public domain so we see whether those proposals are really responding to the aspirations and needs of Ghanaians. We would be looking to see whether they have proposed the abolition of the death penalty, the entrenchment of the long-term national development plan, the expansion of economic, social, and cultural rights, the strengthening of national institutions and systems that will, you know, discourage corruption, because corruption is also a big issue in this country, and it denies people their fundamental rights to the resources that we all collectively own.
Lawrence, let me bring you in here. Since you know, Amnesty International, children.
Yes, children.
Now, it's clear that children's rights are protected and they are sacred and everything in the Constitution. But I think we do diametrically opposed. If you are not, quote unquote, that about with your parents who are rich, you don't have any rights as a child in this country. What can we do? I don't know whether it's to change the psyche or whether it's to put a clause somewhere for this one to work, but I don't know.
Well, I think that children are the future of any nation, and it is important for us to place emphasis on our children. And that's why Amnesty International will continue to champion the rights of the children. Ghana was the first to ratify the Convention on the Rights of Child.
And signing.
Well, I think your question is what do we do? I think the important thing is to look at the structures that we put in place to ensure that all the laws that we put together, all the policies, all the procedures that we put in place are being implemented I think there's that commitment, but I think that what we need to do in this nation is to see whether the structures are working.
No, they are not. You know,
and how do we do?
There's nothing to see because they are not. I mean, there's not even.
We need to
homes.
reinforce.
There are not even homes that if, you know, I had them on the show last, and you know, if they even rescue 100 children, just 100, that's it. The state, they have to ring round for NGOs. So as a state, we can't look after 100 children. It's an indictment on every citizen. If a country cannot look after 100 children.
But Nana, you put your finger there. I would say, whenever they read the national budget, you know, the budget is the instrument that actually delivers whatever is done for whatever category. Just look at the budget allocations and take the share of a ministry like it changes name.
Gender
Is now called Gender and Social Inclusion. That's where the children belong.
Yeah.
Okay? Look at how much is given to that ministry. So again, you can look at the budget and use it to determine the priority government places in different sectors.
Yeah. I mean,
so you're right.
It's fair to put that on you, but being that you are in that area, I mean, what do you do? I mean, sanitize the citizens to realize the importance, because apparently over 1.2 million children are in slavery, fishing and farming and galamseying, doing dangerous work.
Well, I'm happy that it's not only Amnesty International that is involved in promoting the rights of the children. I think we have a lot of other civil society organizations that are trying to advocate for us to put emphasis on. So I think we are progressing. I think we shouldn't lose hope totally. I think something is being done. But the important thing for us, as you said, was to ensure that if we think that this nation should develop, we have to put emphasis on children, and their education is important. Not only education, but where our children go if they are not in classroom. Where do they go? Where do they take them? All these are important. And for Amnesty International, what we do now is to work with other human rights institutions, human rights activists, to continue to remind our lawmakers, our policymakers, the government particularly, that the children, we need to put emphasis on them. And as Zan had said, our ministry that is responsible for children have to be resourced to be able to do the work that it's mandated to do.
See, that's my concern. It's always have to enforce, have to encourage. All kiddie gloves. But in 2014, I mean, a nation such as Ghana, I mean, do we have an excuse, or have we run out of excuses to treat children, so appalling? And I don't have the answers, but what is it that we can do for people in authority and civil society and families to get up and own responsibility? Because families are broken down, they don't care for the children. The state also says, due to financial constraints, and so every traffic light is dotted with our future peddling PK. How do we move forward? Stay tuned, we're coming back. Well, hello and welcome back to this discussion. We're talking about taking our right to health away, and it's a big question mark. But it goes further to look at a whole social protection of every citizen in Ghana, and we're looking at children. Very passionate topic. That if 1.2 million children all stacked up in lagoons and farms and galamsey pits somewhere, denying the basic right of education, yet 30, 40 years' time, they are the same people who we expect to carry on the country and run with it. How is that possible? But what can we do, Zan, to make sure that it doesn't become lip service, but some like a revolution in that area to stop it? Because you go to airport traffic light, and the children are sharing with the policemen, there, and they should be in school.
Yeah.
If not, you're not supposed to be there. They're only like 8, 10 years old.
Yeah.
You don't.
No, you're absolutely right, and I just want to appreciate the passion with which you are raising this issue, and that's what we need, because these are not just intellectual issues just to talk about and theorize. They are real. We're talking about human lives, human beings. We're talking about what our future will be if we did nothing about the situation that you are describing. So, of course, maybe the right thing, I should say, there is no prescription. But let me just, again, acknowledge what you're doing now. That is the first step. That the media can make this a critical issue. Keep raising public awareness about this and compelling governments to take action. One way would also be what we are talking about, ensuring that we structure our governance in such a way that it addresses the real needs of people. One way is what we're proposing, that the fundamental law of the land should recognize those survival rights. I call them survival rights. economic, social, and cultural rights.
But it does,
the people. It doesn't. That's why we're pushing that this would be included. And of course, we also need to, once that has been achieved, we need to build citizens' agency, that we begin to set the agenda of what we want, what can deliver our common good. Not governments, maybe, sometimes politicians are fighting to be in government just for the sake of power, not for the sake of solving national problems. And we're saying the situation that you have described, the situation of children, homeless children, the situation of hunger and deprivation, the whole issue of poverty, the whole issue of people not accessing basic health, those are the real governance problems. They are political issues that needs to be addressed. And so we need to create agency around issues like this and begin to discuss them. I would like to see a lot more discussion on these issues on our social media, on our FM radio stations, rather than focusing on personalities and about partisan, bickerings and things like that. So there are proposals, but everyone can do something, but governments can do more.
Another important thing is, which you raise, is the right of abode or the right to a house, which, I mean, in 2010, social services counted 63,000 children sleeping rough in Accra alone. And that's 2010. I don't know how many more have come in 4 years' time. 63,000. At the time, Monsieur Jamai had 85,000 people. So, I mean, they are due for a DC. I mean, that's a whole district.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand.
We have slums cropping up, developing in our cities. And these are all because of poverty. And people are moving away from the rural areas and settling in the cities. And while they get to the cities, because we don't have housing policy anyway, and they settle. But one of the major problems that we have is that we, people who are given responsibilities to act, do not act. If you allow people to stay somewhere for several years, you don't take one day to remove them. But this is what we see. And that is what also is contributing to children going onto the street that we see. Children and adults going onto the street. Even though we think that people just fight to come to government, government has 3 obligations as a state: to respect the rights of people, to protect, and then to ensure that it fulfills all those obligations. This is what we don't see our governments doing, or people who want to come to power do. And it is our responsibility as media, as civil society, to put pressure on those people to do what they are expected to do. We should ask them, what do they want to come and do? And when they say they want to come and do this and that, we should hold them responsible when they come in to do it. And that will sit on the shoulders of media, the civil society, the churches, and everybody. As I speak on housing rights, as of now, for the past 2 years, government has been, or Ministry of Housing has been saying that they are coming out with a housing policy. As we sit here and discuss, the housing policy is not out. So every government comes and do what its manifesto says, and then it goes. Or sometimes they don't even do it. But if we have a policy that Party A comes into power, starts it, Party 2 comes and continue, that is where we'll build progressively. That is why we say some rights are not immediate, it's progressive. But if we do not have these things in our policies, and we leave it to political parties, they will keep on dribbling us. That's why we're asking that we need them in our law books, so that when you, as a government, comes into power, you start it, you develop on it, and somebody also comes and build on it.
So that's another huge one there. I mean, if I woke up on the street one morning and I was told that, well, you have a right to an abode, So what do? March to the Works and Housing or march to the department and say, listen, you need to find me a roof over my head before 6 p.m. or put me in a hotel.
You put so much humor into this discussion. No. Of course, first of all, you know, let's come back to responsibility of governments again. I mean, governments, whatever they do, they are using resources that belongs to all of us. I think it's very criminal that we always look the other way when we see governments involved or government actors involved in frivolous spending, you know, for personal aggrandizement, when next door you cannot, you know, comprehend the poverty and squalor. So that would be the first challenge. It will be an obligation for government to think through this issue seriously. For example, it may well be that it requires a national policy direction, as Lawrence has talked about. It may well be that it should not just be an ad hoc policy or short term, or one that has been defined narrowly by a party manifesto. It may well be that it has to, you know, have the backing of a kind of national consensus to say 20 years down the road, this is the kind of housing situation we want to have, and this is the agenda that we have set in place. That must be there in the National Development Plan. No wonder our Bishops' Conference, again, one of the requests in the Constitution Review is to have this long-term National Development Planning. So that's just one thing. And just last one, okay, quickly, of course, we also need to address the push factors. If you look at the homelessness in the cities, it's mainly people who have moved in elsewhere. Can't we promote livelihoods of people where they are so that we can stem this movement down here?
Do you want to put in a last word before we go?
A last word, and of course, I would like to acknowledge once again our partners who have worked with us to keep pushing this agenda. Of course, Star Ghana, which is a pool funding mechanism with contributions from USAID, Danida, European Union, and UK Aid, have provided our conference, our Bishops' Conference, with resources to do this. But we are also working with partners like Amnesty International and the Mashalan Relief and Development Services, Marides, who are teaming with us to push this agenda forward. I would like to thank all of them, in particular the Marides, the Mashalan Relief and Development Services. They are not here, but we appreciate their effort.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we hope that somehow, someday, this will not be things that we're just talking about, but it will be a peaceful revolution to make the country better, especially when it comes to the children. Because, folks, one day when we are all weak and old and in hospitals, they are supposed to be doctors and nurses to come and look after us, so we can't enslave them. It's important that we look at that direction. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again, and thanks for watching.